Why is this so important?
I think what's really at stake in this election is a very basic idea, which is whether I and all of us are truly equal. I think what's at stake in this election is whether we have a country that is for all of us, that celebrates the contributions of the South Asian community and the full diversity of the country, or whether we're a country that's really only for some of us and only has an exclusive vision of who this country is for. Unlike any president in my lifetime, Donald Trump speaks for only people who vote for him and support him. And he speaks for a vision of America that, it pains me to say, is almost exclusively white, that is intolerant of our diversity, that attacks people of different religions, attacks religious minorities. And I truly believe the idea that America is a place where all of our parents, all ourselves, the people who've come from other countries to thrive here, that idea, that principle, that notion is under assault. And we've all said before that this is the most important election of our lifetime, but I think it is precisely because we can choose to go down a path or continue on a path that means all of us are a little less equal, a little less part of the fabric of America. And I believe that in this election, we will not be written out. But that really only happens if all of us participate.
Thank you, Neera. Shekar, I'm going to go to you. You've been working pretty tirelessly as well these last 4 years. What's at stake? Why is it so important?
Seema, friends, allies, there's a very short distance to go between here and something remarkable that our community can be involved in. Let me just say, about 15 years ago, I made 2 resolutions. One resolution was that I was not going to leave a country when I left this planet that was going to treat those who were not white as perpetual foreigners. I will not leave that country. Therefore, the second resolution was that I wanted people to learn to pronounce my name. Is that so difficult? Come on, guys. And I don't want people to laugh at it. I want them to understand it. I want them to appreciate the diversity is a strength. It's part of the fabric of America. It is why America is great. And therefore, any country that I leave, and in this case, my country is the United States of America, has to have those values. Now, if every one of the voters in America that goes to the polls, including all those who you're going to convince to go to the polls on Tuesday and haven't voted yet, were to constitute a board of directors, and they were hiring the CEO of their company, in this case of our country, they would probably ask, look, Mr. CEO, you've been there for almost 4 years. I'd like to know just a little bit about what you've achieved and what you haven't achieved. Well, this particular CEO has failed us. He is the cause of so much hatred, division, and frankly, death in the United States. He has failed in his job, his duty, his absolute responsibilities. And the second thing I would ask is, so if I fire this CEO, who would I hire? And I would say very simply, I would hire a person with compassion, leadership, character, history, leadership, the ability to bring us back together and the ability to start to solve our problems as a nation. So my simple argument is this is the election in which this community and our communities stand up. We fire Donald Trump and we hire Joe Biden.
Thank you, Shekar. Deha, bring us home on our round robin. What's at stake here?
Yes. So, ever since I had my daughter, everything that I do is really for her. It's no longer about me or what I wish to see in society. It's about what society is going to look like for her. And even, is she going to be even able to go to school? If she's at school, is she going to be safe at school? Or are we going to be worried about tornadoes and hurricanes and wildfires that are going on? Is she going to be able to be taken seriously? And to Neera's point, is she going to be? Is somebody going to ask her, "Oh, where are you from?" It's like, yes, I'm from New York, born and raised, and my name is American. Or is she continuously going to have to, fend off other people? Or if she's bullied in school, is that going to be taken seriously? If she's looking up at the screen and seeing the president of the United States espouse hate, is it okay then for her to do that when I tell her, no, that's not appropriate? Well, the president of the United States is doing that. So how is it okay for me not to do these things? So for me, it's like, does she have the ability to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? And we've certainly seen so much of that eviscerated over the last 4 years. And I certainly don't want that for her over the next 4 years, because that is going to change the course for decades to come.
Thank you so much, Neha. Dr. Murthy, we're gonna go to you first. We have COVID-19. It has been ravaging America, well over 200,000 deaths. The disease appears to be on the rise. Our way of life has changed. You've talked so eloquently about the emotional effects this has on us. How in the world did we get here? And did it have to be this way?
Well, that's such an important question, Seema. That very last part in particular, was it destined to be this way, or did we have a choice? And the truth is, we had a choice. It didn't have to be this bad. We didn't have to lose so many people to this terrible disease. We didn't have to shut down our lives for such an extended period of time. And part of the reason I say that is if you look around the world, what you see is that many other countries have fared better. South Korea, in total, has lost less than 500 people to COVID-19 from the start of this pandemic. We lost far more than that number just today. It just tells you that the magnitude of impact that we have experienced is so far beyond what many other industrialized countries have experienced. And the truth is, we had actually a lot of the ingredients to deal successfully with COVID. We have some of the greatest scientists in the world. We have extraordinary resources. We have a government apparatus, and we had a pandemic playbook that told us how to approach this type of situation. But the truth is, even if you have the best car, for example, with the best engine and the best, interior and the best, headlights, but you don't have a good driver, you're not going to go very far. You're going to crash. And what we suffered is we didn't have good leadership. We instead had leaders that focused more on politics than science and what guided them in decision making. We had leaders who failed to unite us and bring us together, who failed to deliver results, whether it was protective equipment or whether it was adequate testing. And we are suffering the consequences of that poor leadership.
Dr. Murthy, I know you've been such an advisor to the vice president throughout this crisis. Talk a little bit about how a Biden administration would look in terms of fighting COVID-19, especially in those first 100 days. What's going to happen in a Biden administration?
Well, I will tell you that, from direct conversations and experiences with the vice president and his team, that this is number 1, 2, and 3 on their priority list, figuring out how to address this pandemic, how to get our lives back to normal. They recognize that along the way, one of the most important casualties of the way we've handled COVID-19 is the damage to public trust. And restoring that trust has to be top of the agenda. And the way that a President Biden would approach that is to recognize you reestablish trust by, number one, communicating openly and honestly and often with the public, not just in good times when things are going well, but even when things are tough. The second is he realizes you rebuild trust by listening to experts and following science. And you will see him do that, both in how he puts together guidance for the community, as well as who he puts forward at press conferences to speak directly to the public. And the third thing he realizes is that delivering results is absolutely essential to rebuilding trust. And what he recognizes as part of that is that we've been pushed into making this false choice between public health and the economy. And the truth is that they actually go together. The goal of Joe Biden is not to lock down America. The goal of Joe Biden is actually to open up America. And the way you do that is by handling this virus effectively, by building up our testing apparatus, by ensuring we have adequate contact tracers, by ensuring that we also have invested in building the therapeutic supply and pipeline that we need, as well as in distributing a vaccine fairly and effectively once one is proven to be safe and effective. Those are the areas you'll see Joe Biden focus on as president.
Thank you so much, Dr. Murthy. I want to turn to Neera and stay on COVID-19 and the health crisis for a second. Neera, you worked many years in the healthcare realm, amongst other policy realms. You were one of the thought leaders with the ACA. Talk a little bit about the relationship between ACA and COVID-19 and what's at stake, particularly as it relates to the Supreme Court.
Right. Well, right at this moment, the Trump administration has a lawsuit pending before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will hear the oral arguments around the case 1 week after the election. So that is a week from Tuesday. Judge Amy Coney Barrett, or I should say Justice Amy Coney Barrett, will sit and preside over this case unless she recuses herself, but we do not know that yet. The Trump administration is arguing. So just to be crystal clear about this, because they like to spread misinformation, the Trump administration is arguing right now that the entire Affordable Care Act should be thrown out by the Supreme Court. There is a particular provision that they are trying to challenge, but what they're arguing is that because one particular provision they argue is unconstitutional, though it is not, they want to throw out the whole bill. So just to say what that would mean is that in this pandemic, which is surging as we speak, we have had the highest number of cases ever. We are now at 1,000 cases a day, 1,000 deaths per day. The United States is leading the world in rates of cases. You know, we're not the fastest, but we are amongst the fastest in the world. And in an out of control pandemic, the Trump administration would like to ensure that over 20 million Americans lose health care. And, you know, almost as tragically, not more tragically in some way, 135 million people will lose their protections for pre-existing conditions. That would happen at a time where millions of people are people who now have pre-existing conditions from COVID-19. So it is a heartlessness and recklessness and irresponsibility in public policy that I have never witnessed in my life. I hope people appreciate the stakes in front of us with the election of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who will build on the ACA, make healthcare more affordable, lower prescription drug prices, and really focus on ensuring that every single American has high quality, affordable healthcare coverage.
So important. Neera, Dr. Murthy talked about restoring public trust. Mm-hmm. In addition to in the public health context, we've also seen real breakdowns in trust with racial unrest. And to pick up on something that Mr. Khan talked about, he talked a lot about, you sort of break down the media slowly and say things that are simply untrue as president for long enough, and it starts to kind of seep in. But talk a little about law and order and racial justice and what a Biden administration would do, recognizing those two things.
I think this is a really central question, because I think what we're hearing, we hear from Donald Trump is a choice between safety and justice. And that is a false choice. In fact, what we know is when communities and police have trust, when a community has trust in the police, because the police are engaging in practices like community policing or working with mental health professionals to provide real safety to the community, actually communities are safer and we are all safer. So, what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have articulated is policies that would improve that trust between the police and communities, particularly communities of color. I think Trump has tried to lie and say Joe Biden supports defunding the police. He absolutely does not. In fact, he supports increased funding for the police so that they can have policing techniques that actually build that trust, and only funds policing techniques that build that trust with communities. And I think when you look around the country, you see communities like Sacramento, communities like Boston, where they've invested in that community-oriented policing, which really works closely with communities of color. And they've seen a reduction in crime and a reduction in police violence towards, men of color or communities of color. And you've seen fewer officer-involved shootings, lower crime rates. So this is really a false choice to drive fear in communities, including our community. Let's just be honest. They're trying to drive fear in our community too. But what we know is this is again, an effort to divide us against each other that is based on falsehood. We can ensure that every American is protected. Their civil rights are protected, their dignity is protected, and we can have a police system that actually provides security to all of us. It is not one or the other. It is, in fact, better to do both.
So well said, Neera. Thank you so much. Shekar, I want to pivot to you and talk a little bit more directly about our South Asian community and the small business owners that are really hurting with COVID-19. Talk a little bit about how a Biden-Harris administration is well positioned to deal with this.
Great. And Seema, you know that the first thing I would do is sort of lay out some of the facts, because those seem to be in short supply nowadays, especially with Donald Trump. Overall, 32 million small businesses in the United States. They represent almost 44% of GDP, fairly important. 6 million of them have employees, and 80% of that 6 million have less than 20 employees. So who's highest at risk? It's those that are self-employed, entrepreneurial. It's those that have less than 20 employees, and they're at risk of closing forever because of the pandemic, but also because of the neglect in terms of making sure they get the assistance they need in the ways they need it. So if millions of these businesses might close, and they are, by the way, disproportionately minority and female-led. Actually, 26% of the businesses that are closing are Asian, 36% are immigrant-owned, and 25% are female-owned. So it's really hurting our community. What could we do? What would a Biden administration do that would address this? Because this is the heartbeat of America. And there is this is a false choice again between our personal healthcare, our safety, and whether you have economic growth and small business. We have to understand that many of these businesses today cannot pay back loans. So we have to create the forgivable loan programs like PPP, but we have to tailor these to our communities, and we have to deliver them through trusted intermediaries like CDFIs, credit unions, community banks. We know how to do this. So why aren't we doing it is a question. We can build back better businesses that are local in nature, childcare businesses that help women go to work, local retail like restaurants, barbershops, nail salons, dry cleaners, even software firms that are single person owned, that are contracting, that have suffered economic losses, and hotels. And that's what Joe Biden's going to do, is we're going to build back small business better, but we're also going to do it by treating it as number one, a national priority, and number two, making sure that all communities benefit.
Fantastic. Shekar, I want to pivot to another policy area that you know so well, housing. We know that COVID-19 had an eviction moratorium in the law that is set to expire in December. Even that was insufficient. There's a hardship that's on landlords and tenants alike. What do we do about the impending housing crisis?
It's absolutely a top of the mind issue in the Biden policy teams. We had a rental affordability crisis before this crisis started. Over 20 million people were paying more than 30% their income to rent. That number has grown to 40 million. So we face a crisis of eviction and homelessness. And the only eviction notice I frankly want served at this point is one on the current occupant of the White House, okay? So how would we do something to stem this tide? The Biden team knows that once renters fall behind or you fall behind on your mortgage, you cannot catch up easily. And that makes landlords very vulnerable on the rental side. It makes mortgage holders have to take actions they may or may not wish to make. So we need rent and mortgage relief now. And there is stuff in the HEROES Act. There is stuff that was passed by the House to address this very directly. It hasn't even gotten a hearing in the Republican Senate. So we need the Senate in addition to having Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We also need longer term solutions that tailor make to this crisis and address future crises. Universal rental vouchers, significantly increased down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. And that is what Joe Biden's going to do. But let me finish with one comment, because I feel like we don't address this in our communities enough. I'm seeing alarming statistics about this pandemic turning into a woman's recession. That's given how many women are dropping out of the workforce due to childcare and elder care issues. We simply cannot afford this to happen. Women are going to win this election for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and by God, we're going to make sure they go back into the workforce and we do what is necessary to make that happen with housing and small business assistance.
Fantastic points, Shekar, and thank you for raising those important points about women actually doing so much to fight to get this ticket elected and elections up and down the ballot, and needing them in our economy. I'm going to zoom out a little bit as I turn to Mr. Khan. Mr. Khan, as a Gold Star father and as someone who has been fighting for the character and integrity of our country for the last 4 years and working so hard to lift up others, especially during moments of crisis and difficulty, talk about what you see as the contrast between Vice President Biden as a leader and our current president, Mr. Trump.
Thank you, Seema. Thank you. Having suffered, as you mentioned, loss, a great loss, I should say, I know that how you respond to life's challenges speak to your character and your integrity. I also see the incredible integrity, love, and courage shared by military families. And Joe Biden is a military parent. I see it in my family, how we have responded to the tragedy and to the loss. And I see it in Vice President Biden. Vice President Biden can be trusted to give of himself. He can be trusted for his empathy. We have witnessed that and experienced that, and the world has experienced that and has seen it. His experience and care. Vice President Biden knows the value of life and value of honesty and the power of truth. He knows what sacrifice means, and he knows the value of the laws that govern us. His entire life is a witness, is a testament to that. Empathy, care. On the other hand, the lack of empathy, lack of care by the current president is the contrast between both leaders.
I so well said, Mr. Khan. I think it was President Obama who said just this weekend The president doesn't, being the president who you are, but it reveals who you are. Mr. Khan, when you took the stage in 2016 at the Democratic National Convention and spoke about your family's journey, that was a moment of pride for the entire South Asian community as you displayed your moral courage. What is your message to people listening today who have lost family members, lost faith, and lost hope over the last 4 years?
Seema, bear with me and forgive me if I lose my composure, because what you have asked is so dear to my heart. And thank you for your leadership. I hope Amit Jani is with us. I have been working with him and with other leaders, Neha, Dewan, and other leaders throughout the country since December with the campaign. There is an amazing, amazing concern in the hearts of Asian American community. Your leadership by example, my dear brother Shekar is with us, his leadership to the business community. Exemplary leaderships have given amazing hope to the community. It is reflected whenever I have traveled, first personally and since March virtually. At the end of every event, people have reached out and have asked, what can they do for the country? What can I do now? And what can I do on the day of election? And my simple and humble advice had been, vote. That is how we claim our place on table. It is not offered, it is claimed, and we claim it by organizing ourselves, by getting out to vote, asking family to vote. Some of us have a habit because of the culture. We don't participate in politics. We don't participate in these activities. But in this country, if you wish to live successfully, you must participate. You must, other communities, our Chinese American communities, our Japanese American communities, our Irish American communities have gone through difficulties, and they have organized themselves, they have come together, and they have been recognized, as is under your leadership, under AAPI leadership, Amit Jani's leadership, Michelle Kwan's leadership. Community is being recognized as fastest growing electoral bloc, and political parties, political candidates are approaching with that dignity and respect to the communities, and that will not happen without our full participation. I not only speak various communities, I also support several organizations by helping them to reach out to the candidates. Believe me, throughout the country, there is uptick in the candidates of Asian American background, South Asian background, AAPI background, and these are school district candidates. These are county council candidates, city council candidates, not only just the state or the house candidates, state or federal office, but these are local candidates that have gotten encouraged by observing your leadership and the leadership of AAPI that is with us today. So each one of us has an obligation to fully participate, not only participate ourselves, but ask our communities to participate. Do your job, fulfill your obligation, fulfill your responsibility. And that is how community is responding. As I mentioned, that I have observed for the last 3-4 years, there is an amazing uptick, down ticket candidates that have been encouraged by observing you as a leader that are with us today. and those who are within the reach of my voice, this is our time, as President Obama has said, that this is the last stand. This election is the last stand. Let's come together. That is what my message is to all within the reach of my voice, that this is the time for us to rise and shine. Our time may have put us in difficult moment in history as a community, but then that difficulty has made us candle bearers in the dark of the night. Other communities have done it. Asian American communities will do it. AAPI community will do it this time. This is our time to rise and shine, be the candle bearers. Candle bearers don't stand on sidelines, don't stand in the back. They walk front and center. So when you go to vote on 3rd of November, make sure that you wear comfortable shoes, make sure you take a bottle of water, take umbrella with you, go and stand in line and think what you're about to do. You're about to make your children proud, your elders proud, your family proud, and yourself proud. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khan, and thank you for your leadership. I want to pick up on your words about our growing South Asian electorate as I turn to Neha. And Neha, you've been working with this electorate. Talk about the grassroots and their role during this election. And also, because I know we're getting towards the end of our time, give people their marching orders. We are less than 48 hours. What can people still do in addition to, as Mr. Khan said, voting?
Absolutely. Yes. So the grassroots effort has truly been tremendous this election cycle, obviously, because we've had to be innovative. We couldn't engage in the traditional way of campaigning. And so the brick by brick building of a coalition has been extremely important. Listening to person, different faiths, different communities within the diaspora has been critical. And, here with South Asians for Biden, we built a broad, diverse, intergenerational coalition to address those issues and any way that we can help and support the campaign. So whether it's dispelling myths through messaging or creating of videos, talking points for the various communities within the diaspora, or essentially providing content in any way that we can be supportive. So the grassroots effort in this way has been critical, whether it's even WhatsApp. We've seen so much of misinformation, but really also message of positivity. The positive platform that the Biden-Harris campaign brings as well. But truly, I think this is my third presidential cycle. Grassroots efforts in this cycle has been unprecedented for sure. And with regard to your second piece about what can people do, so literally we have about close to 48 hours before polls start to close in some battleground states in the Eastern time zone. If you have not voted yet, absolutely vote. Go to iwillvote.com to make a voting plan. I would encourage you to tag 5 of your friends and family to make sure that they themselves vote. But really, between now and when those polls close, there are a number of Biden AAPI phone banks that you can be a part of to convince those last folks who haven't voted yet. And if you yourself are holding on to an absentee ballot, make sure that you drop it off at a ballot box, not the post office at this time, because we know that they may not necessarily be able to get it to the the Board of Elections in the time that is allotted in your particular state. So that is absolutely critical as well.
Fantastic points, Neha. And I know we had some great questions that we weren't able to get to, but there are voter protection lines in every single state. So any issues that you see, report them to those voter protection lines. They do have a way to go up to escalate things to the campaign, but a massive voter protection operation is underway. And there was a fantastic question about what we do with all this great South Asian energy after the election. And I have no doubt that everyone on this call is going to continue to be involved. But number one job is we're going to get through Tuesday and win that top of the ticket election, as well as elections up and down the ballot. So thank you to all our fantastic panelists today. Thank you to all of us joining us, and do not leave because we have something super exciting, a special musical guest, and I'm going to turn it over to Aziz Sandhu to introduce our musical guest tonight.
Thank you so much. I'm now honored to introduce Ari Afsar, who will be performing our musical tribute to conclude the evening. Ari Afsar is a singer and songwriter with placements on ABC, Disney, and Amazon. She is composer of Jeanette, a musical about the first woman elected to Congress. Ari has opened for Michelle Obama, presented before Gloria Steinem, and has been highlighted by Jane Fonda. She was the original Eliza in Chicago's Hamilton. She was Miss California 2010, top 10 at Miss America 2011, and was recognized as a top 36 American Idol alum. She is co-founder of Until We Do It, an initiative that has been providing masks to communities who have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. Please join me in welcoming Ari Afsar.
Thank you so much. What an honor it is to share this virtual space with these legends. Representation matters, South Asian communities matters, and I am honored to be here sharing this space. 4 years ago, I opened the Chicago production of Hamilton as Eliza, a month before the 2016 election. And I'm sure, like so many of you, it changed how I saw my power. It changed how I saw the representation and the responsibility that I felt. And so I got really involved with the Women's March, with the United States of Women, with the ACLU, and I needed to surround myself with leaders like who are on this call, badass women, and I needed to do that to be able to figure out what was the next step. And then I started to question, how can we grow as a society? How can I start to see myself as a South Asian, as a woman of color in representation, if we don't know who our foremothers are? So I Google searched who was the first woman elected into Congress. And she was Jeanette Rankin 4 years before the ratification of the 19th Amendment, giving white women the right to vote. And fast forward, we have a full-fledged production. And pre-COVID, our mentality was, let's get to Broadway, and then let's change minds. And like we've learned, like so many people in this election, yes, the president, the top ballot, but it's about the up and down, as Seema just mentioned, the up and down ballot. And so during COVID, I've had the honor and privilege to turn this 2.5-hour musical into a 25-minute virtual musical, raising thousands of dollars for progressive Democrats across the country, including Doug Jones, Mark Kelly in Arizona, Cori Bush for 15 days before she won the primary, Senator Duckworth in Illinois. And I am honored to be performing this song here for all of you with my community, and to endorse and support Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. This song is called We Won't Sleep until it's over. And we will come together and continue to fight and vote for a better democracy. I believe that the way that we change policy is to change culture, and the way that we change culture is through art. And Kamala Harris and Joe Biden sees the importance of the intersectionality between art and policy. So I hope you enjoy We Won't Sleep. When woman a child could make it easy, could live in denial. We saw the world end, but it keeps spinning. Whether we're losing, whether we're winning. Then they start to fade while we're wide awake and feeling alive. Been staying up late, 'cause we know the stakes of losing the light. We won't sleep, they'll try to get us, but we gon' reach out for love. We won't sleep, no, not till it's over, even with the blurry eyes. Baby, we won't compromise. I dreamed in color when I was younger, painted a picture, one hand's in the other. Now I see shadows outside my window, but I won't close them, no, not when we know that they start to fade while we're wide awake and feeling alive. Been staying up late, 'cause we know the stakes of love. won't compromise. Talking for the pride, say we got no time, that the ballot's gonna rise. It's not too late to realize we can be the first, not be fooled by words. So we're gonna learn how to wake up and change the world. We won't sleep out, they'll try to get us, but we gon' reach out for love. We won't sleep, no, not till it's over, even with the blurry eyes. Baby, we won't compromise. We won't sleep, no, no, even with the blurry eyes. We won't sleep, they'll try to get us. We gon' reach out for love. We won't sleep, no, not till it's over, even with the blurry eyes. Baby, we won't compromise. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ari. That was just so beautiful and so inspiring. You have an incredible voice. That is so amazing. Thank you so, so much. Truly appreciate you being here. And also, I'd like to thank you, Seema, for moderating this amazing panel, and to all of our panelists this evening for their inspiring remarks, as well as all of you at home for taking the time to join us this evening. And I just want to give a special shout out also to all of the volunteers at South Asian for Biden, especially Aziz Sandhu, Rishi Baga, and Harini Krishnan, as well as the events planning team to put together this event, which has been in the works for several months now. So thank you to all of them. But really, I just want to leave you with this with regard to voting. As I mentioned before, vote, phone bank in the next 48 hours. Please make sure that your friends and family vote as well. And if you don't plan on going in person, just make sure that you drop off your ballot at a ballot box. That's the critical thing. So we have 48 hours to go to make history, to change the course of our country. Let's take this opportunity and hit the ground running hard, and then we can relax for the next few years once we recover from everything that's going on. So with that, thank you all so much for joining us this evening. And I do believe that we have one last video to share with you before we leave. Thank you, everybody.
We may have our feet in two cultures,
but America is our home.
We speak multiple languages and may come from different places.
But let us be clear.
This is where we belong.
In this election, vote for everything that matters.
Vote for our children.
Vote for our elders.
Vote for healthcare.
Vote for education.
Vote for the economy.
For our environment.
Vote against racism and discrimination.
Vote for equality and respect.
Vote for a United States of America.
It's going to take all of us
to really use our voices.
So let's just stick together and be sticky rice together.
Between now and Election Day, let's vote for a better America.
Joe and I are counting on you. When we vote, things change. When we vote, we win.
Let's vote for Joe.
Vote for Joe.
Vote for Joe.
Jayo!
Jayo!
Mabuhay!
Come back!